Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is my channel. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So, this is going to be called Sarahy'Seasons, and it's pretty much me going through different topics that I've explored through different seasons of my life. And I'm going to make this is going to be part of a series called MALA SEMILLA. So, pretty much just a brief introduction to that. La Mala Semilla, which translates into the bad seed, it's pretty much just wordplay on me kind of implanting a bad seed in the brain of someone who's like sleep to some shit. You know what I'm saying? But technically, it's like I'm the red pill type shit. And I know, not humble at all, but you know. That's pretty much the basis of this, though. It's not because I'm trying to be a know-it-all. It's going to be where we just discuss certain topics, such as what I'm going to discuss today. Topics that people don't want to talk about, but talk about. That's what I was saying before. Like, it's going to be about spirituality, a journey, uncomfortable moments, people who can share experiences with businesses. I do want to interview some of our local entrepreneurs and like people here, like our local celebrities is what I call them, and you know, people that can give information to those, because I feel like I know a lot of dope people. Like, shout out to my friends, and everyone's like doing their own thing, you know. And talking about two of my closest friends, one of them is filming for Batman downtown right now, and the other one is opening the first vegan restaurant on the west side of Chicago. Well, check it out, the Black Vegan. So you know, it's like, it's dope, you know, just having all these people doing all this dope shit. So I feel like they also have like information that they can share. So things like that is what you'll see. But that's just, along the way, there's going to be maybe just me also sharing more of myself and what I do. So right now I've been working on art. So this is one of my pieces. Not my best pieces, you guys, I promise. Like, I'm getting better. Like, I'm currently doing a very special portrait, and you know, I'm really excited to show that eventually. But it's a process. Pretty much I literally started healing through art as well. So just putting it out there, you know, this is one of my little pieces. This is my evil eye cactus. And I always put real healing crystals and things like that on my paintings. So I feel like there has to be something that's like alive on there. I really want you to know, like, everything I bring, I want it to be also art, if that makes sense. Because that's what we have to do with like situations like that. You have to make art. So you have to recreate yourself. You have to rewire yourself. You have to reinvent yourself. And with art, you know, you can always do that. You can always tweak something and make it your own. So anyway, enough of that video. Anyway, so I did want to get on the topic for today, which is domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it is a topic that is very close to my heart because it's something that I've personally experienced, but I am crazily, that's that a word? No, probably not. Intriguingly enough, I am at a place in my life to where I can talk about this, and I want to share because I want to help someone, because I remember how alone I felt, and it's something that's just been like nagging at me for a while, like, you should do this. But you know, I've always been scared to in general talk about it. It's not something I talk about, you know. So if any parts in this video you watch me like stutter over my words or get all lost, I still am working through talking about it a certain way. I literally don't really ever talk about it. It's taken me so long to get in a place where I really feel like I'm healing from it. And so I really wanted to like make this video to talk about it, bring awareness to it, share some information, share some resources, share my experience. And then, you know, I do want to get some feedback, positive or constructive. And see, I have to like keep starting because I'm nervous. And I haven't even uploaded it yet. I haven't edited it yet. I haven't done nothing, but I'm barely starting. And I'm already like nervous, you know. I did want to say, depending on the feedback that I get, if enough of you would be interested after you watch the video, male, women, whoever, you know, domestic violence isn't one gender. I did want to create a future date that would work with people for perhaps a Zoom meeting where we could more so share with others and share information within each other, or just be there for support or something like that. Depending on the feedback I get from this, you guys let me know if you would be interested in that. And then I think those type of situations is where it would be better to maybe sometimes if we go more into detail with certain things and stuff like that. And I'm going to be giving a brief summary of that, my healing process, which I feel like I'm still healing. Like, this video in itself, I feel like is crossing this huge line for me of really leaving fear on the other side, because I've been putting this out for you. I didn't think I would actually do it. It really shaped a lot of me. It really, I mean, amongst other things, you know, because I was like in a toxic relationship at the time, but pretty much the effects of it, the experience, the resources that I can share, hopefully connecting with someone who's been through it, someone who's healing from it, someone who maybe went through it and barely is going to start healing from it, or, you know, if you're currently going through it, you know, and you know, I really want this to be informative and to enforce and empower and, you know, just share my story, because everyone's story is different. And, you know, everyone that's been through it, there are very much a lot of similarities, obviously, in some way. But I remember how alone I felt when I was going through that. And it wasn't all the way because I didn't have anyone I could ask for help, but it was more so you don't do it. And you wish someone could just understand you, I guess. So hopefully that's what happens here. That's my goal. So at the time, you know, I really didn't have a connection with God, and I can admit that. I mean, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody knows God is part of everything I do. Like, God never left me, you know, because I don't think I'd be here sometimes if God would have left me, if my spiritual team would have left me. So, shout out to my ancestors. But, you know, pretty much, I said I experienced it. So, for me, it's something that happened many, many years ago, a bit over 5 years ago. So, I was a lot younger. I got into a very serious relationship for my age at the time. I was just trying to jump into super serious things. And I mean, the relationship was toxic from the very beginning. There were like a lot of red flags that I ignored, you know, but at the time I didn't see it that way. Like, I always had an excuse for everything, and I wanted to see things my way because I wanted what I wanted. And also in my head, I was just like in love, you know. So there were a lot of things that probably could have shown me where that was headed, but it didn't really ever hit me that I was in a domestic violence situation until it happened. And, you know, we often think that it doesn't happen really until someone physically hits you, but you're in an abusive relationship so much before that. You know, it really takes verbal, I mean, not always, but what I'm saying is you're usually experiencing a lot more abuse than just physical. It's verbal, it's mental, it's spiritual. It's like you become a shell of yourself, you know, pretty much. And, you know, it didn't, I guess, hit me until it happened. But even then, you know, I'm going to get into all of that. You don't react the way you think you're going to react all the time. I mean, kudos to those that bounce right away, but it doesn't always work out like that. You know, pretty much one day, it just happened. We were coming home from a dinner with friends. At the time, I lived in a new state, so I didn't have that many friends. I met like 2 dope ass friends, you know, shout out to Destiny and Julie. Like, they were really there for me during this time, and God put them there for sure. But pretty much we all had dinner, whatever, so that, you know, we could all like meet each other's significant others, things like that. And we had been drinking, so, you know, he was intoxicated. I was driving home, And I asked him a question about what we were grateful for at the time, and at the time there had already been so many fights, so much going on, and we got into an argument. I felt some type of way about him not mentioning me in his answer. I mean, real immature stuff. And at that point, because there had been so much arguing for so long, and I felt like I had already like done the most by, we were like relocated and all this other stuff. I was like, you know what, like I'm out of here. I don't remember all the way what my plan was that night. I really think I was gonna go to like a hotel. I was just upset. But the point is, I went inside the house. He was intoxicated. He didn't come inside the house. I came back outside. He was laying outside. And so it all started because he felt like I ignored him laying out on the ground, and he felt like, what if something happened to him? I wouldn't have cared. At that point, nothing made sense. That's how it started. Eventually, it ended up with him choking me, and then before I knew it, he locked the door, and it went on for almost 3 hours, and I like really thought I was going to die. So I went back upstairs, and we started arguing, and next thing you know, he was choking me, and pretty much after that, it went from him locking the door, breaking his phone. I had no way to call anyone, but to be honest with you, by the end of the night, when I had the choice, I didn't call anyone. I couldn't call the police because I made the mistake of, when I was leaving, I had packed my bag and I put it in the trunk, and my phone was in there. The friends that I hung out with that night had already texted me and asked if we got home safely, and I said yes. So no one was really going to worry about me for the night. I didn't have my phone. He locked the door. He broke his phone. And, it was scary. Like, I got the weight bars you put the weights on, I got that thrown at me. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. And no one was helping me. Like, I knew the neighbors could hear it. I knew they could, but they didn't do anything. No one called anybody. I just thought like I was gonna die. I wasn't reacting all the way. I was just numb. I just turned numb, and I was just so, because the way that it happened for me was just really different. Every time he did something that night, whether it was from choking, or like at one point I remember like there was a headbutt, slapping, stuff like that. But it was just, he would never do it hard enough so that I would not be conscious, but he wouldn't stop. And so I remember at one point in the night, I really pretended to be knocked out, and I was like, maybe if I just lay here, because at this point our house was trashed. The fish tank was broken, the window was broken. The coffee table was broken. The house was trashed. It was trashed. There was blood. It was just like a very bad night. It was just a very bad night. Like, I couldn't, it's like he was doing it, but my brain couldn't all the way, like, fully accept, like, he's really doing this right now, And the thing about it was, so at one point I pretended to be unconscious because I just felt like maybe if he thinks he knocked me out, it'll freak him out and he'll stop. It didn't. He picked me up while I was pretending to be unconscious and dropped me back down. And obviously I couldn't hide that hurt. So he told me to stop faking. And it went as far as trying to force me to throw up. It was just, I just remember really thanking God that night that we did not have a gun in the house. You know, I'm at a place in life right now where even to this person, you know, I've gotten to a place where I'm wish nothing but healing, because I've tried to make sense of it. It still doesn't, but it's made enough sense to where I realize I didn't need anyone to correctly apologize to me or to apologize to me when I needed it. It's something that you can only really give yourself, because in reality, what really holds you back, in my experience, is not forgiving yourself. It's just what holds us back is a lot of our self-punishment that we're doing once we realize like how much we loved somebody else instead of loving ourselves. So anyway, pretty much at some point he did stop, and then he told me to help him clean up. I just did what he said. At that point I was numb. I just remember like I felt numb, I felt swollen, there was blood, there was, my spirit got broken into 1,000 pieces that night. I did exactly what he asked me to do. So I started cleaning up, and I just remember like praying it wasn't going to go into anything darker, you know? And thank you, God, it didn't. You know, it didn't. But he told me to lay down and go to sleep, and then he watched me until I closed my eyes. So I pretended to close my eyes. And then at some point, I couldn't fall asleep, but I was too scared to open them. So I waited like a really long time, and then I opened them, and he was knocked out. And then I got up and I ran to the door, and when I got to the door, I froze. And like I had the option to get out and leave and run away, and I didn't. I was so scared to open the door. I was so scared that he was going to hear me and he was going to get to it faster than I could get downstairs. Froze. I didn't know what to do, so I hid behind a couch. I know that doesn't make much sense, but I went and I hid behind a couch, and I just sat there. And shortly after, he woke up. So I was like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't do it, because he was going to wake up right away anyway. And he started just going off on me and saying that I made him do it, that I made him do it. And then it was like the weirdest switch up. He just switched up, and and so I got mad, and I started screaming, and I was like, how can I make this up, you know? So I had bruises everywhere. I couldn't eat right for a week. Like, it would hurt to swallow food because my throat was so bruised up. I had scratches on my face. I had bruises on my chest and my stomach, my thighs. I remember looking in the mirror that day and just feeling like a shell. Like my eyes felt empty. I didn't know who that girl was, and like I literally had no idea how to save her. Like, I really didn't. My brain was so confused. He was talking about killing himself, so I literally had no time to really process what happened to me, and my brain was so messed up for other reasons and abuse that had already been going on another way that I'm just like, my focus is on him. So I'm like, no, you know, I don't want you to do that. Didn't want him to get in trouble with the law. Didn't want, you know, and I'm protecting him. I'm completely dismissing myself. So I'm not processing any of this. You know what I'm saying? When you don't process, when you don't do what you need to do for yourself, if you do end up in a situation like that, it's such a long journey. It's such a lengthy journey to heal. And so pretty much, to not dwell too much on that, and like I said, there's different formats in which we can go into detail with stories like that, but I focused on him the next day, you know, and he said he was sorry, and he was talking about killing himself. So at the time, that didn't seem right, you know, but obviously I was dealing with a lot of narcissistic tendencies and obviously manipulation and gaslighting, and, you know, but at the time I was not as conscious of certain things that I am now. But that's why I want to share that information. After that, I stayed, and he said he was sorry, and yeah, he was nice for a little bit, you know, and I had to make sure to hide my bruises at work, you know, and God sent me help, but I wasn't listening. My manager asked me why I had like handprints on my arm and things like that. And I remember she sent me a message and she said, you know, my husband's a cop. If you need help, let me know. And I mean, I never told her anything personal, so it was just obvious, you know, even though I was trying to put makeup on my face and, you know, I stayed around for a little bit after that, and then there was a whole bunch of drama after that, and it was just a relationship that was very abusive, and it took me a long, long time to get out of, and it really is true, you know, and you judge people that go through this. But I remember when I was going to therapy, my therapist told me that, and I've read it in other places too, on average it takes a woman 7 times to truly leave, and that is extremely true. It's not easy. It's not something that just happens, you know. Your brain in that moment goes through trauma, and for me, that was that moment. You know what I'm saying? After that, nothing was ever as severe as that physically, but you know, there were still your punching holes on the walls, or scary moments where someone is holding a knife, or you know, locking yourself up somewhere and somebody knocking the door down. Like you know, I went to dark places myself, you know. Like, it was the most toxic shit. You know, in this day and age, I feel like so many people end up in situations like that, and it really shouldn't be like that, and we should really be more educated on certain things, or just have more resources or more ways of obtaining this information. So pretty much, I didn't really leave the relationship until a lot later, but a little bit after that occurred, I did leave for a little bit. So I had to gain some experience because I did have to get a protective order. So there is certain information that I can give on that. And then going through that process, you know, I definitely didn't have money. I was like a 21-year-old college student. I mean, I barely had money for gas. That year, my GPA went from a 3.8 to a 3.0. I mean, I was literally like fucking my life up for someone that was doing these things to me. Like, I completely lost myself. And I wanted to talk about, you know, the red flags that you may not be noticing. You know, the aggression, punching holes in a wall, shoving you, pushing you, even if it's lightly. There are different ways for people to manage their anger. There is never a reason why a woman or man should feel the need to put their hands on someone during an altercation. Once you get to that point, and you know, when I was in that stuff, I reflected, of course, at times, you know, like, there are many red flags that typically occur before it gets physical. For me, you know, I was able to only have to go through it to that extent that one time, but for some, they aren't that lucky, and they don't, or they literally experience something to that degree all the time, and they survive it. Like, in the spiritual world, this is clearly a demon. You know what I'm saying? Clearly attached to a home that was available to it, you know? A low vibrational person, and so they're like literally sucking the soul out of you long before it gets dirty. Usually, like, what I learned through therapy as well is that once it gets physical, that's kind of usually even like the last straw. It's not even like what you first think occurs. So pretty much throughout the process, eventually I had to go through being like the victim and going, oh yeah, you know, this happened to me, and that's why I'm so quiet, and that's why I'm socially awkward, and that's why I have social anxiety. Like, I mean, yeah, it definitely affected a lot of things, and I'm not downplaying those at all, but what I'm saying is that I just kind of, anytime I couldn't do something, instead of maybe trying a bit harder, what I would do is kind of like rely on I mean, at that point, I was a shell of myself. So the only other thing I was able to build off of was just what happened to me. Aren't what happens to you. It really is about how you deal with it, as cliche as that sounds. Yeah. So my friend Jules was telling me one time in anger management, they were asked, you know, what happens when you black out? When you black out so bad that you maybe like kill someone, what do you do when you realize that you killed that person? And what determines the, you know, it's never your responsibility to heal anyone. But what I'm saying is, especially those of us that have tried to save someone, what I'm saying, what the message of that was that what happens after that? You know, do you bury the body or do you take responsibility for what you did, even though what you did was fucked up? So at that point, the whole suicide thread, the whole, you know, we had many talks where, of course, I was this annoying person that pushed that person to get there, and then on top of that, you know, I was waiting on this apology that would never truly come because, according to them, they were not able to remember what occurred because they were drunk, even though it didn't seem that way, and I couldn't prove it. And then you start to think you're crazy because you know I have all these bruises on my body, but someone's telling me that they can't remember, so now I'm feeling crazy in my mind. It's really insanity. So what that person did at the time was bury the body, and then they just moved on, and it confused the fuck out of me. So I did want to talk about the biology end of things and what I've learned. So a long time ago, I read this really good article when I was in therapy about the actual chemical effects that occur in the brain when you experience something like domestic violence, whether it's one big incident or many incidents, or just certain traumatic experiences, and how it actually does correlate with a lot of why people call victims dumb for not being able to do certain things, but it actually messes with your brain. I wasn't able to find the article I read a really long time ago, so I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to put the links at the bottom. So you're more than welcome to go through them so that someone can more properly explain it. You can get more detailed information, and then maybe it can just lead you to start your own research, because a lot of the topics I want to cover on my channel is more so for you to just gain some knowledge and then you go out and venture into more if you're interested. But pretty much there are two main chemical releases that occur during a traumatic event, such as a domestic violence incident. So pretty much there's an acute release of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and then there is a high level degree release of adrenaline. So pretty much when the adrenaline increases to that level, it can affect the coding of implicit memory. So implicit memory is like subconscious memory. It is pretty much long-term memory that you use. So past experiences that you use to affect how you think or behave, but you don't know all the way that you're doing it. Most of the time it's subconscious. So it affects that. And with the cortisol, although it's an acute release, when it happens constantly, which typically it does happen constantly, because when you're going through those type of situations, you know, if it's not one thing, it's another, but you're constantly in that fight and flight mode. So with that, it pretty much creates blockages of activity in a part of the brain, the hippocampus, where the hippocampus memory is located. So the hippocampus is pretty much what affects your limbic system. So this means your nervous system, fight and flight response, reward, memory. Pretty much it affects it fucks up your emotional energy and your perceivable memory. So that's just to name a bit. But pretty much it inhibits growth, especially during developmental periods. So later when we get into statistics, I mean, and it can even affect in some cases after that. But, you know, during the time when most younger people go through the domestic violence, they're typically not, their brain is not fully developed. I know mine wasn't. And so pretty much it can inhibit that because when cortisol is constantly being released, it becomes neurotoxic. So that means that it can kill existing neurons, and then it can kill existing synapses. So things that your brain has already acquired. It doesn't just inhibit how it grows, it in a sense pushes you back. So, all of these effects affect your decision making, how you act, how you stay stuck somewhere, rational thinking, logical thinking. I mean, it affects all of that. So afterwards, when you feel numb and ditzy and this, it's not even just, I mean, really, well, it is from the trauma, and it's not just from what you literally experienced. It's chemically, like your brain is changing. Aside from that, on a psychological end, you end up in Stockholm syndrome most of the time. So if you look up Stockholm syndrome, it's pretty much, when an individual bonds with the abuser, or if you want to, for example, think about someone who got kidnapped and then they fell in love with their kidnapper. Later on, they bonded with them. It's a toxic bond, but it's kind of more of a survival thing. Like, after being broken down a certain way, the whole person, their whole being starts complying now in a toxic way. So now they can bond with them. You feel connected to them. You feel they get you. It's sick, kind of, but you feel that way. And it can lead to imposter syndrome as well, which is pretty much when your confidence is brought to such a low that you doubt everything, and you think you're kind of like a phony, and you doubt everything. Like, I went through that, and I mean, there's a time where I really doubted if I even fell under the category of domestic violence, and at this point I am going to court for a protective order, and I'm still scared that they might not believe me, And I know it can be really hard, also on that end, so we'll get into that. There's people that literally suffer from actual traumatic brain injuries because of domestic violence. When I was going through that, I heard of a woman who her husband beat her so bad that her ears would bleed. Clearly she was not going to the doctor after experiencing trauma, and after that leads to actual way bigger health issues, and literally, like, how you function, how you think. People say, why don't you just go to the police? For me, I went to a high level of authority directly, and I got turned away because I was too well spoken in how I presented what happened to me. It was like, depending on who you're with and what they do, they can be very protected, or especially like, people who, if you look up research, it says over 40% of the domestic violence abusers are people in law enforcement. So, sometimes you really don't know what to do or where to go, or even if you take that step, it doesn't always work that way. And sometimes that's unfortunately when a lot of people have lost their lives. So there's that. Just on the psychological end, I did want to touch base on all of that, because that's just some of the things that your brain actually goes through. And if you're not healing, so healing has been such a process. I would love to make videos on these topics. So like I said, any feedback is very welcome. So you guys let me know if any of these topics I'm saying you'd like me to go more in depth with. But healing is such a process. Like I said, this happened a bit over 5 years ago. So, it's taken me quite some time, and honestly, I don't even think, to be honest, I feel like I'm like writing an essay, and I'm doing that thing where you keep repeating words to make it longer. But honestly, though, I don't feel I've done as much healing as in all these years as I have in the past two. So pretty much, I definitely recommend therapy. I think that if you are able to have access to therapy, if you are able to afford it, and you're definitely privileged enough, like I said, to have access. I think even if you think you're okay, you should sign up for therapy. There's really so many great things that I've learned there to apply that have really helped me progress. And just, you have to remember, you're rewiring your brain, you're rewiring the way you think, because at this point, most of the time, by the time you're leaving or really deciding to leave, you found some strength, you've gotten tired enough, you're blessed enough to be able to try to leave, but you don't feel like you can really think for yourself. And it's this whole process, you know, there's going to be times where you, like that Stockholm syndrome shit, you might think you want to go back to something that you really don't. You know, it's more so like it's all you know. So you feel weird outside of it. Peace is weird to you. So, you know, therapy, definitely recommend that. I've gotten a Reiki massage before, which I still want to keep doing it. Definitely, I've gotten into Reiki work myself currently, so I'll put more information on that once I'm more knowledgeable. But currently, I'm still learning some things. But I just really think that that really helped me start to open certain chakras that are very blocked for me. When you're in something like that, I mean, definitely your heart, throat, sacral, whatever, like you're pretty much blocked. um, affirmations were so important, and I need to do better with that. But affirmations, um, you know, and going through your phases and finding your own relationship with God. You know, if you do believe in God. I went through my not having a relationship with God, you know, to see myself as a very spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. I have my own connection with God. You know, I've gotten more in touch with my heritage and my roots and my ancestors, and getting in touch with all of our own special powers that God gives us with. So that has immensely helped me heal, because I definitely learned about shadow work, and shadow work has really affected my growth. Once you get into shadow work, and we can do a video on that, you know, you really start to break down. Everybody does it in their own way. You know, I have my own journey, but it's really helped me to really become more conscious of how hard I am on myself, how I hadn't forgiven myself, how much it was affecting me, and how long I avoided really dealing with it and really healing from it. So it's a process, and I'm still going through the process. But even this video is part of that. And remember, everything works out in its own time. Don't apply too much pressure. Don't compare yourself. You really don't know what people have been through. Um, and if you haven't experienced something, that's great, but you really don't know what you would do in that situation. So it's just important to be gentle with yourself, and that's something I have to remind myself of, you know, being gentle with myself. So pretty much, I found this website called Greatest, and they have a link to domestic violence, and so I pretty much to get help for domestic violence, and I'm going to put the link down there. But I love it because it pretty much gives you warning signs, how to get help, different organizations you can reach out to throughout the country, statistics, who it impacts, information on pressing charges if you're ready to take that step, because you know it is a process. If you want to volunteer, and just the bottom line information on domestic violence. So I'm going to put that down there because I really felt like that was extremely helpful. So I did want to share just some statistics. So pretty much about 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men experience physical or severe physical violence. So this includes beating, burning, strangling by their intimate partners in their lives. So 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. I mean, literally, if you go in the store, any store, there's already a nice little chunk of people there that have experienced something like this. For women, on average, it is 3 women per day that are murdered by husbands or partners in the United States. Per day, that's a large number, obviously. A lot of these statistics were mainly for women. They are the bigger demographic in this situation. However, like I said, it's not gender-based. It could be anyone that goes through this, and this information can help anyone. But it is more predominant within women of ages 18 to 24. So like I said, even then, your brain's not fully developed. You're still learning, you know, and that's when it happens. So a lot of times this can lead to suicides. 72% of suicides involve an intimate partner. And then 1 in 15 children in America are exposed to intimate partner violence. So, like I said, that's everywhere as well. This is like a toxic cycle. that extends throughout different groups of people, different genders, different ages. You know, it's abuse. And so pretty much I wanted to share just some of those statistics because I really wanted to reach out to anyone out there that just really needs to know that they're not alone, and that, you know, there has been people that go through it. Another resource that I wanted to share is the Connection for Abused Women and Their Children. It's the CAWC. It's in Chicago. Pretty much it began in 1976, and it's like a landmark where people in Chicago can go to access when in crisis of domestic violence. So it can assist you with different programs, shelters, information, legal help, pretty much anything you need. You can reach out to them. And I pretty much read up on them, and I didn't know about them here because when it happened to me, I wasn't living in Chicago, but I am going to put their link down there because I wanted to put just a local resource. But if anybody else has any other ones they want to send at me, I can totally add them. So just feel free to send me that in my DM somewhere. So pretty much for me, when that happened and I had to get a protective order, I was in a different state. So when I was over there, like I said, I was a lot younger. I didn't know to look into all these resources. I know it sounds dumb because Google existed, but I just didn't. And so when I had to get the protective order, I was given a public attorney. The other person did hire their own attorney. But pretty much what saved me were messages I didn't delete, where it was clear that that happened that night based on the conversations we were having. And then I did take a picture of my face. I don't know why, but something told me to. I got scared and I deleted it, but I emailed it to myself before I did, and that's pretty much helped me in court as well, because it was obvious, like, something happened and it was on that date. So pretty much there is and I always can't say this word, so please don't laugh at me, ombudsman. But they have those in court and places like that, and they're able to help you and guide you. You know, I ended up in a room where it was only people dealing with domestic violence situations and protective orders, you know, and I met so many women that were in like such crazier situations than what I was in. You know, someone who had their tires getting ripped every other week. There was someone in there who shared that they had that person breaking in their house, but they couldn't prove it because that person would put oil on their fingertips anytime they did it, so that you could see someone was there, but technically you couldn't. Even if I guess you did call someone with the equipment to really come get down to the nitty gritty, like, you couldn't. You know, these are people that, you know, I don't know. You know, like some people take it further. Like I said, in my situation, I've worked on forgiveness for that person. I do believe everyone can grow, but I just realized it just wasn't my responsibility to heal or pretty much kill myself in a figurative and physical way in the process of wanting to do that for someone, and it is on them, you know, and just also being honest with myself, you know, because you have to be honest with yourself when you're in a situation like that. Yeah, maybe you're not the abuser, but in some way you have to admit that you're toxic, at least to yourself too. You're toxic to yourself. It's not about blaming you. It's just about the part where you have to realize that you're being toxic to yourself and you're hurting yourself every time you don't choose you. And it's not to place blame. It's just to admit something and then not beating yourself up over it, just pretty much going, okay, but I'm done hurting myself. You know, I want to love myself. I want to heal. I want to get better. So how can I change this? How can I stop making those decisions where I'm the last person I think of? So things like that, that's more so what I mean. And so, you know, within that process, I learned a lot about, you know, when you are going to court, you know, it is better if you move faster, but don't shame yourself if you wait a bit to go. Oftentimes, depending on the type of state you live in, for me, it was a Commonwealth state. Pretty much, I got told that if I didn't press charges, they would, and then that's what happened. Um, there's local help almost everywhere. I called the domestic violence hotline at the time. Honestly, I would recommend doing that if you're able to, you know, and you're safely able to do it. In a sense, they're not able to really tell you what to do, and obviously, because they understand your situation, at any time the call can be dropped. But sometimes I called 2 times, and I remember both times I didn't care that I was telling a stranger. I couldn't tell my friends and family. You know, I was too embarrassed. I don't know. It just helped to release a lot of my pain to someone, even though I guess understood it wasn't someone I had like a connection with, but it definitely does help. So I'm going to list a lot of those resources. I had one of my cousins in Georgia reach out to me in regards to giving me some of the resources in the area she's in down there. So I'll post that there as well. At the time, I didn't have children, so there is certain information that I'm not able to just automatically know. But like I said, free sharing resources, and if you're interested in that Zoom meeting, please, I'll do like a little vote on my page if you follow me, but if not, just DM me, let me know. So if I feel like there's enough a good enough amount of people, then we can kind of get that situated, and then we can go more into detail about all of these resources that we all have, and different things that we can all share. I did just want to touch base on that and pretty much just share the last time or that one time can turn into a long time or no time at all. You know, some people don't make it, and some people, you go from wasting a few more years to decades. You know, some people never leave, you know, especially a lot of our ancestors. You know, their whole lives were so different that they really were in this somewhat toxic, abusive relationship, like their whole lives with someone. And so I feel like our responsibility to break those curses and start setting ourselves apart, because typically, not always, but when this happens, often you're able to look back at the women in your family, or however you want to put it, the men in your family. If that's something that keeps reoccurring, sometimes you start seeing that it's a bit too much of a thing or of a theme of normal, and that's not okay. So I did just want to share that, because I feel like in this world, the only real currency that we have is our time and our energy. And so you definitely want to make sure you're fully investing that in yourself so that you can fully serve the Lord's purpose for you. If you like the video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And like I said, please feel free to provide me with feedback in any of the DMs. Let me know if you're interested in that Zoom meeting that we can create. And then I am going to be uploading, like I said, more content. My other videos won't be as long as this one. This was my first one. I try to cut it down. It's just a lot of information. But pretty much any feedback that you have. And I'm also going to be uploading an interview that was conducted at 1570 Chicago, just on the startup of my channel. It's pretty much just a fun interview. It's by one of my best friends. And remember when I said go check out the Black Vegan opening up on the west side of Chicago? And it was really fun. I feel like it really, someone I'm very comfortable with, so it really captured me. So it's just a really fun look into me finally deciding, like, I'm stepping into this and committing to it, even though I've been talking about it for like 20 years. And like I said, there will be other videos on a lot of other topics, and I hope that you did like it. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys later. This is Sarahy, and you're watching. I'm just kidding.